The Massive patch notes just came out, and in this video we will go over all of the 36 cards that are getting changed. 19 are getting nerfed, and 17 are getting buffed. I hope you enjoy the content, and if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget you can have it for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the patch.
You are not prepared!
The patch should be dropping less than 1 hour from after this video comes out, and it really is gonna be a huge one. Here's what the devs have to say, I'm just gonna read this for you. Dev comment: this patch is a little different than our usual balance patches. It's more about the general design direction of the game than it is about particular power outliers, though we hit a few of those too. Right now, there are a lot of cards that can remove player agency and raise the power level of the game beyond where we want for a 4-set meta. We're looking at a variety of these meta-defining cards in this patch, from OTK style cards to powerful AoE effects that make it feel like your minions don't matter. There will always be cool dreamy cards in Hearthstone, that's part of what makes Hearthstone Hearthstone, but these types of cards can sometimes be disproportionately more fun to play with than play against. We don't want these kinds of cards to make up the most powerful and prevalent archetypes in the game, especially if they create metagames where players' agency feels low. There are a few categories of changes in this patch. The first is cards that can end the game quickly when played, and which warp the entire game around whether you get to play them at the right time. No duplicate cards are also a subsection of this. Being able to draw your deck to avoid the downside of these cards is an interesting deck construction challenge, but it has in large part developed into turbo draw decks that tend to be less interactive and not in the spirit of these cards. The second category is powerful uncapped board clears. We've made and will continue to make AoE effects, but these particular instances are too efficient at clearing the board, making minion-based strategies feel helpless. The third category is cards that are just a little too strong in their decks and should be toned down a bit. Similarly, our wild changes are to some clear power and play experience outliers in that mode. Finally, we're making some buffs too. A lot of these changes we're making in this patch are to weaken new cards or strategy that came from Whizbang's workshop, but we don't want to just go back to the meta we had before the expansion. So we've identified some underperforming Whizbang workshop archetypes that we think better align with our overall goals for the format, and infusing them with a bit more power to give them another chance. This probably won't be a one and done fix. We're going to keep an eye on the game after these changes go live and continue to push towards a game that aligns with our design philosophy. To read more about the general philosophy, check our developer insight post on the topic from earlier this week. Thanks again to Blizzard for providing us with this little draft. I did have a chance to actually look over all of the things already, and I have this sexy Word document already drafted, and I've already counted we have 19 nerfs happening, 7 of which were legendaries, 3 for epic, 4 for rares, and 5 for commons, so that's gonna be a good load of dust if you have those cards. And I hope you haven't been pressing the mass disenchant button, sure as hell I haven't. We have 4 neutral cards, we have 3 nerfs for warlock, 1 for priest, I bet you can't guess which one it is. Couple of nerfs for Death Knight, 3 nerfs for warrior, and that's actually more than a couple of nerfs for Death Knight, you're gonna find out real soon why. 3 nerfs for warrior, 2 nerfs for shaman, and 1 nerf for hunter. We also have 3 wild nerfs. As for the buffs, we have mage buffs, 3 of them, 3 for druid, 2 for shaman, 2 for warrior, hunter gets 1, rogue gets 2, warlock also got 1, priest has 2, and we also have a couple of neutral cards that got buffed as well. Now let's get into the details for those. And we're starting off with Reno, and he's getting slapped to all the way up to 9 mana. And that's not all. If you notice, the battle cry is if your deck started with no duplicates, empty the enemy's board and limit it to 1 space for a turn. So we're no longer actually gonna be seeing 2 of but Reno decks anymore, and instead people are actually gonna have to start with a Highlander deck to begin with, and this also means that things like Helia and Plagues are not really gonna be disrupting Highlander decks anymore, which kinda sounds like a good thing, but I feel like soon we're gonna start complaining that there's no real play around against Highlander decks, and that might also get annoying soon. But yeah, Reno is quite the powerful card. It kinda got buffed, but it also is obviously getting nerfed to 9 mana, so there's that too. You're no longer gonna be able to just play this on turn 10 and still be able to use a hero power, or to use a hero power and play it, or just anything else with the 2 mana aspect to it. But yeah, you get it. Reno decks are gonna be hitting a little bit different now, and this is either a good thing and a bad thing. Like, we might actually start seeing a bit more actual Highlander decks, because they're not gonna be getting cog blocked by all those plague decays, so yeah, we should be seeing some interesting developments on this aspect. We're also getting a nerfed Ziliax Rogue mainly, because that was the only deck that was actually using this module, and it's no longer going to be having stealth, which kind of makes the module a little bit harder to use now. It still is actually getting a little bit of buff too. It's going to be a 1/4 now. Still remains at the 3 mana, and it still has Elusive, Poisonous, and Reborn. And I can still see Ziliax Rogue kind of work, but not having that perpetual stealth on it definitely is gonna hurt a lot, so probably it's gone. Probably it's gone. The more I think about it, like, yeah, we do have the spiders, but those only stealth it for a single turn. So even though you're still gonna be able to protect it for a couple of turns like that, maybe even more if you get lucky with the from the scrap heap idiots, it's just not gonna be very reliable anymore, so it was barely a deck as is, but with this losing stealth, it's just not gonna get to see much play anymore, I do believe. We also have Gaslight Gatekeeper becoming a 4-mana card, and I get it. It's just a little bit too cheap of a card that basically draws half your deck again if you set it up correctly. We didn't see that many decks utilize this card that much, at least in Standard. I think it's more utilized in Wild as well. But yeah, things like Warrior were using it quite a bunch, so they can draw out their TNTs. And we have seen some Plague Decays also drawing this so they can find their Heliophaster and whatnot. So yeah, this card is gonna be seeing a bit less play. Also, Miracle Rogue was using that one, so I guess that's also a nerf to Miracle Rogue as well. Snake Oil is gonna be a 1-mana card now, and that actually kind of makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you are selling Snake Oil, so now you are gonna have to pay 1 mana for that useless Snake Oil. And it's still a decent card, guys. Like, half the decks that are running Miracle Salesman, they're running it so they can actually stick a 2/2 body on turn 1 and also have a way to draw a card for only 1 mana with the tradable, so things like Spell Token Hunter are still going to be enjoying the effects of this. You're no longer going to be able to remove it from your hand for free if you're having some hand size issues, but then again, I don't remember the last time I had to play a 0-mana Snake Oil and feel good about it, so there's that too. So yeah, that's an interesting little nerf, and I can get behind that one. Wheel of Death is finally going to start doing what it says it's doing, destroy your deck in 5 turns, and now it's actually going to start the count at the start of your turn instead of at the end of your turn. So you are actually gonna have to survive 1 extra turn for real this time. Whereas in the past you just play this and it already ticks 1 turn, so that's not exactly how the deck was supposed to work to begin with. So that is definitely gonna be a nerf to Wheel Warlock. It's gonna take him a little bit longer to actually survive, and let's not forget Reno also got bumped to 9 mana, and it's also not gonna be run in Wheel Warlock altogether, so I don't know why I reminded you about the 9 mana part. You're simply just not going to be able to run Reno in 2 of decks anymore, so Wheel Warlock definitely is taking a fat hit. Speaking of fat hits, you're no longer going to be getting fat dudes out of the Forge of Wills for cheap, at least. It's no longer going to be a 3 mana, now it's going to be a 4 mana, and this definitely does hurt the deck a bit. You definitely loved dropping turn 3 location into turn 4 7/7s or turn 4 Dark Ally Pact, but you're still going to be able to drop this on turn 4 and coin out Loken on turn 5, so that aspect at least is still going to be there for decks that enjoy these things. But yeah, this is definitely not a small nerf combined with the wheel and no longer running Reno. Wheel Warlock, it's definitely going to be feeling the pain. And speaking of pain, look at who's also getting clapped. We're getting Imprisoned Horror down to only a 4/4. And it's still not that bad, guys, because given the fact you can literally drop this man as soon as turn 2, 2 of them, I can definitely get behind these guys losing a little bit of stats. Obviously, Pain Warlock is the only deck that really utilizes this right now, and it's gonna be a little bit less dominant with this guy losing a little bit of stats. And they're also using Forge of Wills usually, so those were a couple of nerfs to Pain Warlock as well. And this also is a nerf to Sludge Warlock, so all around the Warlock class is gonna be feeling the impact of this patch. Moving down to Priest, and for anybody who guessed Zarimi, duh, it is getting nerfed. Now Zarimi is gonna still be a 5-mana idiot, but he is gonna require you to play 8 dragons, so you're actually gonna have to work for it now. Like, a lot of the times it was actually not so easy to play 5 dragons till turn 5 or 6 anyway, and now upping the ante to 8 dragons, that's actually gonna cost them a little bit a few turns. And I'm definitely happy about that, because Zarimi Priest is a little bit too OP, guys. Like it just does a little bit too much. And honestly, I'm not sure if this is enough to nerf Zarimi Priest. I still believe Zarimi Priest is gonna be hella fine. Because they can still literally build a board with more than 30 stats as soon as turn freaking free, with the help of things like Funnel Cake, with the Celestial guy that gives you a temporary copy, as well as 0 mana Zilliaxes. Like, if you fill the board like that and your opponent actually played a few minions, you actually get to play a couple of Zilliaxes as soon as turn frickin' free. And that's kinda insane. But I guess they did say they are gonna keep an eye on the patch, and I think Zarimi Priest is still something to look out for. Threads of Despair, another pretty disgusting card, is also getting toned down, but honestly I'm not happy how much it got toned. Like, it's just 1 mana increase. Technically it's a 100% increase on its mana cost. It used to cost 1, now it costs 2. But honestly, even if it costs 4, it's still literally clearing the entire board for a lot of opponents that try to build boards. I guess you're no longer going to be able to use this super early with the Poison guy, because Poison guy, Hero Power into Threads of Despair was actually a full board clear, because the Hero Power actually got Poisonous on it, and once this explodes, this also gets Poisonous on it. So that's going to be a little bit of a more expensive combo, but still this card feels a little bit too disgusting. And again, about that player agency, about that opponent's minions not mattering, I mean, this is one of the most disgusting cards out there in that regard, so I don't know, man. I feel like something else should have been done here, like maybe slap in a few runes on it or some shit like that, but they are trying to step away from that, so I don't even know what they should have done here. And the other thing that's getting slapped is the Sickly Grimwalker, which is getting +1/+1 on stats, but it's now actually going to be a 4 mana, so this combo became a lot more expensive. Now this would be a 8 mana combo, or a 6 mana combo if you actually set up some Silver Hand Recruits with ghouls in them, so that can also work like that. But yeah, both of these getting nerfed at the same time definitely is gonna help a bit in sticking actual boards against Death Knights, and I'm happy for that. Sanitize, another very big offender, very, very efficient removal, is going to be 6 mana now, and it's actually gonna be gaining 4 armor if you forge it, so again, a little bit of a rebalance on the Warrior side. We are seeing quite a few nerfs to Warrior. So I guess it's not bad that they're taking a pretty medium approach to the nerf. So yeah, this going up to 6 mana, I guess it's gonna buy you a little bit of extra time against Warriors, so you can actually prepare for something like this. Like if you're a hunter, you're gonna have more time to make your board sticky and whatnot. And basically any board, any class is gonna have a little bit more time to actually build something resilient to the Gain 4 and then slap all of the stuff on the board with it. We also are getting Trial by Fire, getting back to 7 mana. And yeah, this thing is one of the best cards in Warrior right now. It's very, very efficient. You can get a discount through the free Elemental. You also can use this offensively, defensively. Like, it's huge tempo. In the end of the day, it used to be a 6 mana 15/15. And if you're smart about how you use it, you can definitely be winning a lot of games with it. Now, it being a 7 mana, it's gonna slow it down, obviously, and I think that's a good thing. Another actually surprising card for me that is getting nerfed is Boom Boss Toghren. Boom Boss is no longer going to be shuffling the TNTs in your deck. Now it's going to be shuffling them in the opponent's deck, so it's going to work more like Plagues, or like the bomb decks we used to have with Warrior. So now you are actually going to be shuffling these in the opponent's deck, and it's not going to matter how much cards you're going to be drawing. It's all about how many cards the opponent is going to be drawing. And a cool thing about this is they actually thought about the TNTs being able to blow themselves up. Well, they're not going to be able to. They're idiot-proof. The TNTs are not going to blow other TNTs in the opponent's deck. So that's kind of a cool little adjustment to the cards. And it's not going to feel super horrible like drawing patches and whatnot. So yeah, interesting nerf. But we are going to be seeing a lot of changes to Warrior, it seems. The good thing about it is Highlander Warrior is going to be remaining Highlander Warrior now. Like, it's no longer going to be susceptible to plagues and crap like that. And you're also not going to be un-Highlandering yourself with the TNTs anymore. But as we saw, that doesn't matter anymore, because it's all about how your deck started and not how your deck continues afterwards. So interesting set of nerfs for the warrior class in general. Moving down to Shaman, another big offender here, Flash of Lightning. Flash of Lightning definitely is a huge card for Shaman right now, mainly for the Nature Shaman. Is the only archetype that's using it right now. Well, if we call the other thing also a Nature Shaman, that is, but there's also the Giant Insect Shaman with the weapon and whatnot. So both of those variants of the deck are gonna be nerfed with Flash of Lightning getting bumped to 3 mana. I don't believe this alone is enough, and also I don't think it's enough that the Crash of Thunder is only bumped up with 1 mana as well. Like, this thing goes down to -12 if we gotta be completely honest, and this costing 1 extra, I mean, you literally could just play this on turn 5 and totem and still feel absolutely fine in most cases. And yeah, I still believe Nature Shaman should be a hell of a deck. The obvious nerf here was supposed to be like, leave the mana, just make sure that they don't go under 1 mana. Like, that's all they needed to do here. Leave this at 2 mana, don't allow the spells to go down to 0. That's obviously all that it needed here. Because basically, Shamans are still going to be able to play a gajillion spells as soon as turn 6, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, there is Cult Neophytes and Speaker Stompers and other nonsense like that, but I feel like this deck is going to be warping the meta around itself, perhaps, if people finally learn how to play that not so complicated deck, if we gotta be completely honest. Like, it's really not that complicated. You can check out some of my guides about it, some of my gameplay. Even I can play that deck, so that says a lot, I guess. But yeah, those 2 nerfs to Shaman, I'm not very confident it's gonna be enough. Moving down to Hunter, it did not dodge the nerfs. Jungle Gym is losing 1 durability, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I've been coaching a lot of Spell Token Hunter, not gonna lie. And the Jungle Gym is just way too efficient, like 2 mana with 3 charges. It's not that big a loss for the Hunter, but there were frequent times where we actually did manage to use all 3 of the charges, but then again we were a little bit too loosey with him, just because we knew we had 3 charges on him. Now we're just gonna have to be a little bit more careful when we actually start blasting, because you only have 2 shots on both the locations, so there's that. Moving down to some of the wild nerfs, we have Time Warp getting the Zarimi treatment. I've played plenty of this deck back in my day, like, I did play wild with this thing, and it was pretty fun to spam turns like that with all sorts of different ways to repeat it. Like, they were beating around the bush for quite a while now, but they finally hit the nail on the head, so Time Warp is not going to be able to trigger more than once now, and I am perfectly fine with that. Another thing that I'm perfectly fine with, Floop's Glorious Goop is also gonna be refreshing mana now instead of giving you a 1 mana crystal for this turn only. And that's probably not gonna allow Druid to do all of those nasty things super early as well. And the other thing, Death Rattle Rogue is actually gonna have to spend 5 frickin' mana for the Snowfall Graveyard. It's lasting 3 turns obviously still, but having to pay 5 mana, technically you can still just pay 3 mana with prep and whatnot, but yeah, you are gonna actually have to work for that thing to work. And it was a very disgusting deck. Like, I'm doing my quests in Wild from time to time, and whenever you see a Mining Rogue and get killed as soon as turn 5 with absolutely nothing to be able to do against it, it felt dumb. It definitely felt dumb, and this is gonna slow it down a little bit. Okay, so all of these cards, don't forget you can go to your collection and write refund in there, and it's gonna list all of those nerfed cards for you to disenchant. And the general rule is, if you're literally not using the cards right frickin' now, it's always a good idea to just disenchant all of them. If you decide you want to be crafting them, you can do that for the exact same amount of dust, because right now we're in the full dust refund window. But if you don't want to be playing with those cards anymore, well, might as well save that dust and invest it towards something you actually do want to play. Hearthstone is not exactly a cheap game, and not making smart economy choices for your collection is not going to make it any more fun for you, I can tell you that much. So yeah, that's why you don't want to be pressing the mass disenchant button. That's why you want to be saving yourself extra copies of high potential nerf cards. That is all. Tips that are gonna help you actually build towards a very much better collection with which you could be building plenty more meta decks and actually have some fun in Hearthstone. You are gonna have 2 weeks from today, so you can check how many days that is. We're the 25th right now. What does that make? Next, well, the 2 weeks from now on Thursday, you have up until then to disenchant all of these cards and get your full dust. So that would be May the 9th. So yeah, hope this helps you figure out what you want to be doing with your collection. I did say we have 19 cards nerfed, but technically all of the plague cards are also nerfed. Sadly, they're not going to be listed as refundable cards, which is kind of silly honestly, but then again it would have been tons of extra dust for us, so I guess I can somewhat get behind it, even though it would have been pretty nice gesture if things like Hell Yeah, Plagues and all of that stuff also got the full dust treatment, but it's probably a little bit too much to ask for. Now we're moving down to the adjusted to be stronger cards. All showdown in the Badlands, no duplicate cards. Gunslinger Kurtrus, Ristraza, yada yada yada. Technically are getting, I mean, not really buffed. Like, they're kind of adjusted, not to be stronger, but just straight up adjusted, because, like I said, yeah, no longer you're gonna get fucked if the opponent shuffles shit in your deck. But you're still not gonna be able to actually build duplicate decks with some Highlander cards in them, so that's definitely not a small change. So yeah, the Battle Cry effect has no duplicates at the start of the game instead of when played. Moving down to the actual buffs, starting off with some of them mages. Manufacturing Error is gonna be only 5 mana. I really hope this deck doesn't pick up, I really do. Only spell Mage is a little bit of a too much random bullshit fiesta for my liking. And this card might allow that to happen a little bit easier. And yeah, I really hope it doesn't, but it is getting buffed. We also get Sunset Volley getting buffed here. And it's actually not so much a buff. Technically it is for the card, but for the gameplay with it, not so much, because this was an integral part of all of the Tendril decks. So things like Tendril Rogue, Tendril Warrior, who else? Tendril Shaman, I think. They all banked on having a 10 mana spell to cycle with all of their stupid tendrils and actually kind of OTK the opponent with a bunch of 10 damages to the face and summoning 10 costs. Right now, the only 2 10 mana cards spells were Sunset Volley and Table Flip, and now it's only going to be Table Flip, whereas you're only going to have a single shot at a Sunset Volley that's going to be competing with the Scourge. And honestly, the Scourge is probably the better card anyway, so that's kind of a fat nerf to all of the Tendril decks, but it is a buff to the Mage nonsense card, so there's that. Still not sure where the hell you're gonna be running this card, honestly, but I don't know, like, it feels weird. Like, this is honestly a nerf to Tendril decks, it's not a buff to Mage cards. Seriously, who's gonna be running this still? Guess time will tell. We also have this Elemental guy getting buffed a little. He's now going to be only a 5 mana. He definitely is quite the interesting card. And we have seen some Elemental mages out there, even today. Pretty low win rates, but definitely pretty budget friendly. Like, they were under 3,000 dust, if I remember correctly, including this guy, if I remember correctly again. So yeah, this thing going down to 5 mana might actually make it somewhat better of a deck, because right now it's hovering around 53%, at least last time I checked. We also have some Druid buffs, starting off with Woodland Wonders. It's now going to be summoning you a couple of 2/5 beetles instead of a couple of 1/5s. And the requirement and everything else is still the same, so they're trying to buff a little for the spell power. Druids. We also have Zoc getting buffed to a 6 mana, so I guess that's a little bit more support to Hero Power Druid, I'm assuming. Might start seeing a little bit more of that. And we also have a buff to the Chia Drake, which is going to be a healthy boy now, sitting at 3/5, so +1/+1 on the stats. Could make it a little bit more playable, a little bit more resilient on the board, so it can actually trade some damage from it. And that combined with the Woodland Wonders might actually be enough for it to start feeling more like a real meta deck, you know? Moving down to the Shaman buffs, we have Hagata the Fabled. Now she's gonna be a 4 mana for free. She's losing 1 health for the price of 1 mana, and that definitely seems like a worthwhile trade. I'm assuming Highlander Shaman is gonna start using this. I mean, it did used to use this, mostly. There were variants that were not. But I'm pretty sure that Highlander Shaman should be picking up a little more now. With Real Warlock not being dominant, with Plagues being out of the way for Highlanders, Highlander Shaman I think could be thriving again. And this is not a bad buff, especially to a legendary, make it a little bit more usable. I actually have this in signature, so that's kind of cool as well. Aftershock is getting reverted to 4 mana, but it also is not going to be getting discounted down by 2 anymore, so it's still going to be a free mana removal if you cast the spell the turn prior. So that's interesting. It is obviously a buff, but it's half a buff. Like, this thing used to discount by 2, now it's only going to be by 1, so it didn't get fully reverted back to its former glory. It's somewhere in the middle, and I'm kind of cool with that removal. And I'm kind of cool with that approach. I think they found the sweet spot for this card, but honestly it did felt quite nice, even as a 5 mana discounted down to 3 anyway, so I don't know. I'm okay with it, I guess. We also have Botface getting a little bit more stats on himself. It's basically +1/+3. I'm still not sure how much Warriors are going to be utilizing this, but I guess maybe it's going to find some room in the Highlander Warriors. It's a fat taunt, and there is that spell that cheated out even earlier. But it did have quite a few requirements, so I'm not really sure how much this thing is going to pick up, but I guess it's a nice effort. We also have the Tyrannosaurus, a Hunter Beasticle. He's going to be getting 1 extra health on it, and it's also going to be getting 2 extra damage on it, so that's a little bit cool. I'm not sure exactly what kind of hunter is going to start using this. Maybe something like Highlander Hunter and whatnot. Maybe Death Rattle Hunter. Is that even a thing anymore? I think it is. But yeah, it's nice little step in the right direction for the card, but it still might fall short for it to actually get included in meta decks. Guess time will tell on that one. We have Shoplifter Goldbeard getting toned down with 1 mana less. It's gonna be a 5 mana 5/5. That's a pretty nice, has a pretty nice ring to it, don't it? And yeah, this might actually help some Pirate Rogues finally emerge in the meta. I'm not really asking for it, but yeah, we were expecting Pirate Rogue to be an actual deck, Boat Rogue and whatnot. So far, it has been nothing of the sort. And I guess this might help a little. Combined with all of the other nerfs, it might actually help it thrive again as an archetype. We also have the Crystal Cove, and I honestly had to double check if this thing is in standard. I thought it was like Caverns of Time kind of nonsense or some shit like that. But yeah, apparently this is a Whizbang rogue location I totally slept on. And for good reason, nobody was using it. And now it's gonna be making your next minion into a 5/5. The next minion you summon this turn has its stats set to 5/5, which is kind of cool, I guess. Might actually work with some of the Pirate Rogue nonsense. And it does have 3 charges to it, so there's that too. We also have Crane Game for Warlock, losing 1 mana. Summon copies of 2 demons in your deck. I mean, I guess Sargeras is a demon, but he's actually not going to be summoning his location, is he? That's kind of lame. What are even the big demons we're trying to snipe off with this? I'm sure there are some, but right now they're seeing 0 play, so this is a weird card still. Guess it probably is going to need a little bit more time to shine, but I might be wrong on that one. Too lazy to double check what demons we can actually be summoning with this, not gonna lie. Moving down to some priest buffs, we have Fly Off the Shelves. It used to be 4 mana, now it's gonna be 3 mana. And this card actually looks pretty promising. It is gonna help Dragon Priests actually last longer. Instead of actually building fat boards, maybe they're gonna be able to handle big fat boards and whatnot. But like I said, I feel like Zarimi Priest is still gonna be remaining kind of unchanged. It's still gonna be super OP building fat boards, and Zarimi is just gonna be coming around turn 7-8 to really seal the deal. But I guess this is a nice little alternative you could be slapping into the deck. Like if you are gonna have to include more dragons in the Zarimi Priest, this might also make the cut in that case. I guess no more Magata and whatnot, because the spells are gonna become like 8. But I'm not gonna be surprised if Zarimi Priest remains pretty much unchanged. Maybe just add a few more dragons and that'll do it. But yeah, we will see. We also have another Priest buff. This is probably for some Raza Priest action. The Papercraft Angel is gonna be only 2 mana now, but it's also losing 2 health, so that's kind of big. But your hero power is gonna be costing 0, so that's kind of cool as well. Like turn 2 0 mana hero power with a body attached to it. Like you could be playing a turn 1 1/3 and turn 2 slap this bad boy and get some overheal action going. Maybe even make a trade in the process with a 1/1 idiot or something like that. So yeah, this is not a bad card. I'm not sure we're gonna see too much of it though, but I guess it's again not a bad effort. Treasure Distributor, another rogue pirate card. I mean, it's not a rogue card, it's neutral, but we all know who's gonna be using it. And this thing is gonna start actually gaining attack itself too. That kind of sounds weird. Like, he's a treasure distributor, he's not a loot hoarder. Kind of weird flavor there, but apparently this thing is gonna start growing as well. That might be cool, but this is probably gonna be more problematic in wild than it is in standard, but it all comes down to how good the pirate rogue is gonna be in standard, I'd say. And yeah, this thing, I guess, would be helping a little bit on that front. And lastly, we have Splendiferous Whizbang also getting all of his decks made better, apparently. I don't know exactly what that means. We still don't really have a update on that, and honestly, I haven't really bothered to check anything about Whizbang's decks at this point. So far, it has been falling short for me as a card. Like, I literally couldn't care less about his decks right now. But maybe when they become more splendiferous, they might be worth the chexicle. The patch is definitely huge, not gonna lie, and a lot of things will be changing. Like all of the duplicate Reno decks are gonna be basically gone. Wheel Warlock took a fat hit. Ziliax Rogue took a fat hit. Highlander decks are getting improved, I guess, the straight up Highlander, so that would be somewhat of a buff to Highlander Warrior, even though it took quite a few hits as well. It is definitely a buff to Highlander Shaman, and maybe we're gonna start seeing some other Highlander nonsense, like Demon Hunters might come back more with Highlander decks. Hunter sounds somewhat promising as a Highlander deck as well with some of the changes. So yeah, that's interesting. Feel like Zarimi Priest is gonna still be a problem, so we probably will be seeing more nerfs to the class. Pain Warlock took a decent hit. Wheel Warlock took a fat hit. Death Knights with these cards are gonna be a little bit more doable with board-centric decks at least, or with just straight up big minions. Warrior definitely took quite a few hits here, like all of these combined, and the TNT getting changed, a lot of different stuff. Nature Shaman is still gonna be strong in my book. Hunter should be remaining strong as well, I think. And yeah, for Wild, this nonsense is gonna be a little bit less dominant now, it seems. So yeah, definitely can't wait to see how this meta is gonna be shaping up. If you guys want to check me out, I will be live on stream right now after the expansion goes live with another coaching session, and we're gonna be trying to finding the new best meta decks. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing after the patch goes live today. And if you enjoyed the content and you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to get coming for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.